Hey, ladies, welcome to episode 21 of the Health, Life, and More for Women podcast. Today, I want to talk about success. And more specifically, I want to dive into how you are defining success in your life. Before we dive in, I just want to say thanks for tuning in. It would mean the world to me if you would go ahead and give this podcast a star rating. It really helps my podcast be seen and heard by so many other women. Thanks in advance. Welcome to the Health, Life, and More for Women podcast with certified health and life coach, mom of four, and just all-around lover of all things 80s, your host, Jennifer D'Amato. Buckle in, let's get started. Well, hello there, ladies. I cannot believe it's episode 21. I feel like I just started this podcast, I don't know, a few weeks ago. Except when I do look back, there's a lot of good stuff here. And I'm so excited for what's even to come. Isn't that how we should live? Like, I have such appreciation of what's behind me, all the things that were, while at the same time holding that space for what's to come. Imagine if we honestly just lived every day that way. Gratitude for what was and expectancy for what's to come. That's some good stuff. I'm not even talking about that today, but it just was on my heart as I reflected on 21 episodes. I know it's just 21, but y'all, you have to start somewhere. Everyone starts with a day one. Everyone starts with a first time. They just do. And here we are, episode 21. Woo! I'm excited. All right, let's start talking about success. The reason I planted this episode right here, it's the end of January 2020. That's why this episode is sitting here. It's strategic. Yes, it is. And the reason I'm talking about success is we're a month in. We're a month in to 2020. I know you set some goals. You probably had some intentions you went into this year with, right? Maybe you call them resolutions. Maybe they were just things you decided this was your year. I'm going to go to the gym more. I'm going to cook at home 90% of the time. I'm going to have a family game night. I'm going to have a better attitude at work. I'm going to invest more in a relationship. There's something you set your heart and mind to when we were ending 2019 or when we were beginning 2020. So take a moment, and if you've already lost sight of what that was, I think we need to go back there. I think we first need to go back and look at what did you set in your heart and mind? What were the goals? What were the objectives that you set forth going into this year? The problem is most people don't put them somewhere they can reflect on them. They don't write them down. And I'm a big believer in if you don't have that vision in front of you, if you don't have the thing you want to move towards where you can see it, how do you know where to go? You won't have any sense of direction. So pause right now if you need to. Go back to where you were, the goals that you set, the desires of your heart and your mind, and write them down. Now, if you already had them written down, great, you're a step ahead, awesome, love it. Take a look at them, or at least bring them to mind. Now, are you making steps toward your goal? Are you taking action every day or every week, however that is formed in the thing that you're doing? Are you taking action toward your goals? Have you made any progress? I literally just had a conversation with someone and they were telling me that they had set a goal, like, I am going to finally move my body again. Whether that was a gym, I believe, for them, but the goal was movement. Like I've got to get back to moving my body again. Like I'm just not happy not doing that. And it took her until 3 weeks in to make that happen. I applaud that. She kept it in the forefront of her mind. She set it as the goal and has started to make progress forward. It's not gone. I mean, we're not sitting here in May, 5 months in going, oh yeah, right. What was that I wanted to do? No, because it was at the forefront of her mind, because she had set that intention and focused on it, she's making it happen. I love that. I love that. And I don't think it was a set deadline that, by January 4th, I will be at my gym. No, it was in 2020. Here's the goal. This is what I need to do. And it didn't happen in the time frame she hoped it did, but because she kept it in the forefront of her mind, it's happening. I love that. I love that. So with all of that in mind, with the idea that we've set goals, we have dreams, we have desires, and not just for the end of a year, beginning of a year, beginning of a decade, whatever you want to look at, is that we set these things all the time. Even if they're little projects at work, or we have goals as a parent, goals as a business owner, you define success in those goals. You are the one setting what success looks like for your goals. So the question is, how do you define success? That is going to be unique to you. Let me say that again. That is going to be unique to you. We get caught up in this world of what others define success as. I could easily get caught up in that right here on this podcast. Not even talking about my business as a coach. Right here. I had to define what success looked like for Jennifer D'Amato, for the Health, Life, and More for Women podcast. I had to define success. If I had taken, let's say, Rachel Hollis, who is a phenomenal podcaster, and defined success based on what she is doing with her podcast, I would fail. I would fail every single time. First of all, I ain't Rachel Hollis. I'm Jennifer D'Amato. Second of all, I haven't been podcasting as long as she has. It's like that whole saying you've heard, I would be comparing my beginning to her middle. And I don't have the same dreams and desires as Ms. Rachel Hollis does. They're totally different. So my definition of success for my podcast would be unique to what I deem it as successful. I have to have that defined though. When I show up every single week on this podcast, I have to have that in mind. When I'm creating the content, choosing who will be a guest on the podcast, I have to have that definition in mind. When I have my definition of success in mind, I know where I'm going. I know what I'm aiming for. I've done the same thing in the world of parenting. So I had to sit down and really think about, what does success look like when I'm done with a particular season of parenting? And there's a whole bunch. There's ones I've already finished. There's the ones I'm in, and there's the ones that are coming. And I had to really sit and look when my kids were toddlers and define success in parenting there. Because let me tell you, parenting toddlers sucks, okay? It's hard. I was a stay-at-home mom. I was with my precious, sweet babies every day, all the time. And I loved it. And I'm so grateful that I was able to do that. But dang, I don't want to do it again. However, I had to define what success looked like. Sometimes that was defining success for the day. Like, success for a day was getting a shower and not being interrupted. I mean, can I get an amen there? Success for that season, though, was that my children were growing friendships together. That was something I defined as what success would look like when they were young. Success during that season was that I was present. That's how I define success. I wanted to be present, like literally sitting on the floor with that baby Einstein DVD going and playing blocks or whatever little toy they had, or the kitchen set and all the cute things. I mean, seriously. But I had to define success. I have to define success now. I'm raising teenagers. Okay, so yes, toddlers were hard and it sucked. Teenagers, oh, totally different. It is so far my favorite season, but it is so far the hardest. But I have to define, what does success look like when I'm parenting teenagers? We have some really big success definitions as a husband and wife, my husband David and I, of what that's going to look like. And success for us is that ultimately when our children are grown, that we are friends with them. That doesn't happen now, but we do the things now that leads to that. Another one actually is, it's similar to when they were toddlers. We were planting it then, but the success of this season is defined in the girls being friends as adults. Both my husband and I have learned that that's not an automatic. You don't necessarily walk into friendships with your siblings. So it is a sign of success for us in this season of parenting. There's some other ones, and I won't go into all of the details of that, but I want to be clear that no matter what it is you're looking at, business, relationships, parenting, your marriage, work, whatever it is, the projects, how do you define success? You need to have that definition clear for you. You can seek mentors and teachers and advice to help formulate success in that definition. Maybe there's somebody you really admire and what they're doing or what they've achieved is like, oh my gosh, I do want to head there that way, or I want that thing, that's where I'm headed. And it starts to formulate success for you. However, I want to be really clear that you have to define it for you. And it may not look like success for anybody else. It's really not supposed to. It's unique to you. Because ultimately, you're the one at the end who's going to be gauging, was this successful or not? You know, once upon a time, I was a 5th grade teacher. And I learned about rubrics. So it's this point evaluation for when my kids did like book reports or projects. They got the rubric ahead of time. So they would know that Mrs. D'Amato is looking at these 5 categories, and this is how you get the total number of points, you know, on a scale of 1 to 4 or whatever it would be. What you have to do that is the most successful, it was so clear. This is exactly, if you do all these things, you're getting 4 out of 4 in all categories. And I defined what a 1 looked like, what a 2 looked like, what a 3, and of course, the highest level of success. So that when they went into the project, they went into the task, they had the definition of success before they started. Ladies, I want you to know that I've created something just for you. Have you ever struggled with knowing, am I really even hungry? Am I just eating because I'm bored? Or maybe I just polished off that pint of ice cream while I cried into it. I have created a beginner's guide to understanding your hunger. Yeah, a total beginner's guide. Start from scratch. I wrote this ebook just for you. If you're interested in downloading it for free, just click the link in the show notes below. All right, let's get back to the podcast. How many times have you been at the end of something, an end of a project, an end of a season, and you're feeling like it wasn't a success? Have you asked yourself, did I define success? Did I create that rubric in my mind? Do I know what the, 4 out of 4 was? And often what happens is we didn't. We had no gauge, yet we're feeling at the end it wasn't successful. Yet we never took the time at the beginning to define what success is in that area. So this is a great opportunity. Maybe you haven't done it yet. You are parenting teens even. Maybe your kids are grown and you're listening to this. Maybe you don't have kids at all, but you have a business, you have relationships, whatever that is, and you've never sat down and said, gosh, what is success here? You have the opportunity to do that. Simply sit down and look at the areas of your life that you're like, I want to feel successful when this is over. I want to feel successful. And maybe it's feeling successful when your time is done. What do you want that to look like? Define it. If you are a journaler, is that a word? If you're someone who journals, write it down. Put it on paper. Define the success. If you're married and you're talking parenting, sit with your spouse. Maybe they are going to bring some amazing ideas to the table you hadn't even thought of, and get on the same page and define success in your parenting adventure together. Define success in your marriage. If you are a leader, if you're in any place of leadership, you might already have a clear definition of success for those who work for you, work under you, volunteer for you, whatever that is. But you've never shared the rubric. You've never told them what success looks like for you. Then it's time. You need to share that vision, share what success is, so they can be on that same path. If they're working for you, if they're volunteering for you, they should know how you define success. Otherwise, they're defining it for themselves, and it may not be the same as yours. So the key to success is in defining success for you. That's where it is. That's where you're going to find it. So I encourage you, go write it down. Define success. Look at the areas of most importance to you. Look at the areas you haven't defined it yet, and do it. And if you need to, take it a step further and share it with those who need to be on the same page as you. All right, ladies, this was some good stuff. So excited for your success. Until next week. Hey, ladies, want to connect with me outside of this podcast? Come follow along on Instagram at Jennifer_Health Coach for Life. That's Jennifer_Health Coach, 4 Life. You can also connect with me on Facebook. Just search Jennifer Coach, 4 Life. I also want to help you take your health, both physical and mental, to the next level. I want you to feel empowered. I want you to reclaim your body's intuition. If that's for you and you're ready for support and accountability like you've never had before, then why not book a free consultation with me by visiting my website, www.healthcoach4life.com. That's www.healthcoach4life.com/request session. I've also made it really easy by including a link in the show notes below. For any questions about the podcast, or to submit a question or topic you would like discussed here, you can email me at jenniferdamatopodcast@gmail.com.